host, Chelsea, and this is Midwest Fright. Oh, how much I missed hearing that intro. Love it. I love you guys. Thank you for checking in on me. I'm okay. Nothing happened. I just needed a little break. And if you're like, Chelsea, you just started this. What do you mean you needed a break? Hey, excuse me, I'm about to cough and die. I really tried so hard to push out as much as I could from the get-go. Excuse me. So I really just wanted to take a second, kind of reflect on that. I planned this kind of poorly, and that's okay. I'm one of those where if I want to dive in, I go straight forward, and then I kind of burn myself out, which is kind of what I did. And I know that's so sad that only like 3 months in, I was like, but I did have a lot of other stuff going on in my life, so that's okay. Work was a little crazy, still kind of is, but that's okay. And I decided to take some me time. I went to go visit Doug for a weekend, and then I visited my sisters who both are up at college, just a few hours away. So that was a lot of fun. Doug's out in the Carolinas, so that was a good 12-hour trip. It was a lot of fun. We didn't really do much, which that's okay. It was just so good being together again. So I appreciate everyone that has checked in, been like, hey, what's going on with the podcast? I'm still here and I am ready to go. So with that being said, it's Movie Monday. Yay. And I kind of forgot about this film, The Ruins. Oh, shit. Before I get started, I have a little shout out real quick I have three shout outs for three of my listeners. One is Destiny. I appreciate you. You're amazing. Thank you for all your love and support and encouraging words, and also for sending me a couple of true crime cases that I'm still looking into. So thank you so much. The other one is Austin. Get your driver's license, bro. Just get your license, okay? And lastly, thank you to my dear, sweet, amazing friend Tammy, who has just been a phenomenal friend, phenomenal sister to me. Thank you so much. And please don't cry, but I love you guys. So, all right, back to what we're here for. We are here because I watched a movie called The Ruins years ago, and I hated it. But now that I'm older and I've rewatched it, I kind of liked it. Now that I understand and I have grown a bit, it's still not the best. It is not up there in my top, but it's not bad. I would say put this on your list to watch. At least give it a shot. It couldn't hurt, right? So The Ruins came out in 2008. That was kind of a weird time for horror movies. And I feel like this is more adventure horror, body horror. I don't know, kind of like a thriller, I guess. But anyway, all right, let's jump right into this because I know you guys missed this. So the budget was $8 million. It grossed around $22.8 million. So it's not bad. That's pretty good, obviously. And the runtime is only an hour and 30 minutes. I will tell you this. I watched this twice in one day. Normally, it's hard for me to do that. Believe it or not, when I was a kid, I used to do it all the time. But now that I'm older, I kind of I think I have undiagnosed ADHD, which is fine. It's okay. I don't know. But my attention span to watch this a second time, or any movie a second time is kind of rough. But I could do this with this film because it went by fairly quickly, in my opinion. So let's get into, I don't know, I guess you would say this is a little fun fact about it because you guys know I love that. So the film takes place in Mexico during the summer, but it was shot primarily in Australia during the winter. Heavy coats were provided for the actors in between takes, and water and olive oil had to be sprayed onto their bodies to simulate sweat. So, little fun fact, now that you know that, it was during the winter. This does star, there's I don't want to say there's a lot of actors, but we have our main players and then we have a few key ones. Not key ones. Oh my God, I'm already fucking up. Here we go. I'm trying to do this with less cuts because it saves me time if I don't have to cut a bunch of stuff. So bear with me. All right. Anyway, so this stars Shawn Ashmore, who is a twin. He has a twin brother named Aaron. But mainly we know Shawn from X-Men. He plays as Bobby, Iceman in X-Men films. He plays as Eric. Then we have Jenna Malone, which if you watch Hunger Games, she is Joanna. And she's also Rocket in Sucker Punch, which is a very good film. She plays as Amy. Then we have Jonathan Tucker. He plays as Jeff. And I've seen him in quite a bit of stuff, like Virgin Suicides, Sleepers, but the main thing I know him from is Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2003. He played as Morgan. And then we have Laura Ramsey. She was in The Covenant, and she also, She's the Man fans, okay, you know, the soccer movie with Amanda Bynes before she went crazy. Okay, anyway, she plays as Olivia in that. And then we have Joe Anderson, which is, Laura Ramsey plays as Stacy. My bad. And then we have Joe Anderson, who is Matthias. He was Deputy Russell in the Crazies remake, came out a few years ago. And he's also in the movie called The Grey with Liam Neeson, which is a great movie. I wouldn't consider it horror, but we might cover it. I don't know, because it's like out in the wilderness trying to escape the elements and wolves and stuff. It's really good. And the ending still makes me so mad. Anyway, all right. So we have Eric, Amy, Jeff, Stacy, and Matthias. I might mess up Matthias's name because the subtitles, there's an H in there. And so I want to say Matthias, but it's not because they say like Matthias or Matthias. I don't know. Anyway, that's his name. Okay. Don't come at me. All right. So this is a leisurely. Oh, guys, I'm already fucking up so bad. It's okay. It's okay. All right. So a leisurely Mexican holiday takes a turn for the worse when a group of friends and a fellow tourist embark on a remote archaeological dig in the jungle where something evil lives among the ruins. The fuck? Basically, 4 American friends and this other guy who is not American go to a ruin site trying to find this one dude's brother, basically. So there you go. There you have it. And there's evil among them. Okay, cool. And this is also based off of a book. And the same guy that wrote the book also played a part in writing the movie. So that was pretty cool. It's not, they've said it's also not like 100% accurate to the book, obviously. But some characters, like he had switched around on things, people that died, etc. So this is a production of DreamWorks. And every time I see DreamWorks, I think of Shrek. Come on. What comes to your mind whenever you see DreamWorks? You see the little boy sitting up like on the moon or the D or whatever, and he's like fishing. I think of Shrek. What do you guys think of? All right. Are we ready? Okay. So the scene opens to a woman, maybe in her 20s, sitting in the dark, crying. She looks up. She's screaming for help. Her phone is cracked. The screen is still on, but you clearly can see that there's damage to it. Well, she's hitting the buttons, and all of a sudden, something grabs her from behind. We start getting an overview of thick trees in the jungle. It's daytime, and that's whenever we get our title card, The Ruins. We meet Stacy, Jeff, Amy, and Eric. They're at like a hotel resort. We don't get to see much of the hotel area, but they're sitting by the pool. And Stacy and Jeff are playing gin I don't know how to play gin. I always hear at movies where it's like always an old lady and she's like, you want to play some gin? I don't know what the fuck it is. I'll look it up later. If you know how to play it, leave it in the comments and just say if it's fun or not. Anyway, she wins saying she wants to play war. Jeff says no, he's not playing anymore. And Amy, who's sunbathing, is like, hey, your rules are if you win, you get to pick the next game. Eric comes over with Mexican hair of the dog, he says. He brings margaritas. Just margaritas. Amy says she'll take one, and Jeff says, keep that away from me. And Eric says, that's not what you were saying last night. They all laugh. Stacy's like, yeah, what was up with the Mr. Nude lifeguard thing anyway? Jeff has no recollection of this, and he wants to change the subject. So apparently Jeff got a little wild the night before. Jeff tells Amy she's burning up, and she's like, no, I'm just hot. Like, I'm just flushed. He tries to put sunscreen on her, but she's like, no, I'm good. He's like, okay. Then this part cracks me up. Then she realizes that one of her earrings are gone. Her favorite earrings. Okay. I know everyone had to have seen this when it came out. When Kim Kardashian gets thrown into the ocean and she's like, my earrings are gone. That's what this whole part reminded me of. It's like, okay, also, who the fuck wears a bunch of jewelry to the pool or the ocean? I don't understand. I get like if you have like small earrings, you know, like in your ears and stuff, like they're always there. It's just like if you wear a ring, right? But why do people like wear dangly earrings? You don't sleep in them. So why the fuck are you out by the pool in them? Anyway, the earrings are also ugly, so I don't get what the big deal is. She's telling everyone to look under their towels, and we see a guy across the pool. He's watching, and he kind of hears her, and she's being upset over a freaking earring. Well, a few minutes go by, and he walks up saying, hey, I found this. Must be yours. She's like, oh my God, thank you so much. Okay, she didn't say it like that, but you get the gist. He goes to leave, and then Jeff's like, hey, do you want a drink? And of course, the guy's like, sure. Stacy makes a point to say that there's ice in it, and Eric's like, well, it's blended. She goes, yeah, there's still ice in it. Amy goes, it's just ice. And Stacy is adamant that the water system is contaminated with human feces, and your drinks are blended with hepatitis B. Gross. Jeff asks the new guy where he's from, and he's like, Munich, and he has like a European type accent. His name is Matthias, and he asks them how the four of them know each other. Stacy and Amy are best friends, and Eric's with Stacy, Jeff's with Amy. Excuse me. Matthias says he's with his brother, and he went off with some girl to a dig site because she's some kind of archaeologist. Amy's like, what's the site? Matthias says some kind of Mayan temple. Jeff calls everyone out and says, oh, kind of like the one nobody here wanted to go to. Matthias says it's not on the guidebooks and it's like VIP only. Eric and Stacy say, yeah, that sounds way more interesting. That they would definitely go do that instead of going to like a tourist trap. Matthias says he's going there tomorrow because his brother Heinrich was supposed to be back by now, but he must be out having a good time. And that the group can join him if they want to. Jeff looks at everyone. Ancient Mayan temple off the beaten path? A little culture before we leave? Stacy and Eric say they're in, and Jeff looks at Amy and she's like, do we have to wake up early? Same. But also, some stranger who also is on vacation says that he's going to go to a Mayan temple that is not on any guidebook. And y'all are like, oh yeah, we'll go. I swear to God, if this was my friend group, no, fuck no. Just so we're all clear, it's not happening. So anyway, a few guys start jumping in the pool, and Matthias seems to know them, and One of them is like, hey, you're coming to the party at the beach tonight. He also has an accent. Well, come to find out, these are the Greeks. Matthias says yes and explains to the group they're also supposed to be coming with him tomorrow. But maybe not because they're all kind of crazy in the head. So we're at nighttime now. Jeff, Eric, Stacy, Amy, and Matthias are sitting on the beach, kind of like away from the party. And Amy is clearly buzzing. She brings up Jeff learned or played the trombone in high school, but is now on his way to becoming a doctor. And he's kind of like embarrassed, like, thanks for telling everyone I played the trombone, you know. But then she like gets up and she's like, come dance with me. And he's like, I don't really think so. Well, she falls over and Jeff tries to get her to come to bed with him, but she doesn't want to. And he's annoyed, but he's not mad. You know, they're all like in their 20s. And he's like, okay, cool. Like, she's safe. She's with friends. Well, they all say night to him and Jeff leaves. Well, Amy asks Matthias to dance. And he's like, what, like a waltz? And she's like, yeah, sure. Well, Eric makes a bet with Stacy that Amy will try to kiss him. Stacy explains that Amy is just freaking out because Jeff's med school is 2,000 miles away. So they make a point of letting you know that Jeff's in med school. Well, Matthias looks over at them and he's like, hey, Jeff's a nice guy. Well, Amy pulls him in and she's like making out with his ear. Well, Stacy quickly gets up and is like, nope, come here. I'll dance with you instead. So, yeah, night ends. Well, Jeff, since he went to bed early, he decides he's going out on a morning jog on the beach. The fuck? You're on vacation and we're still going to jog? Okay. Anyway, well, he sees two of the Greeks passed out on the beach. And when he gets back to the hotel, he finds Matthias and the other Greek, Dimitri, eating breakfast and writing out a map. Matthias mentions that while Dimitri is writing, that the place is only on the old map and is gone from the guidebook. So they're making a copy to leave for Dimitri's friends so they can follow whenever they wake up. Jeff says to give him about a half hour to get his friends and they'll meet in the lobby. Well, Dimitri puts the map under his friend's face that's passed out on the beach. Well, now we're in Eric and Stacy's room. She's getting dressed and Eric's like, do you know what they do to people down here who don't honor their bets? They smash their hands. Stacy's like, cool, that's great. Well, we leave in 15 minutes. Jeff will be pissed if they're late. And he says, yeah, what about Amy and her night? Stacy tells him not to bring it up. Well, they're going to do a little quickie, okay? Because remember, he bet that Amy would make out with Matthias anyway. So, well, now we're in Amy and Jeff's room. Amy is throwing up. She is hungover. Jeff gets out of the shower and he's like, hey, are you good? Well, he gives her some medicine and she's like, maybe I shouldn't go. She'll just hang out and read or sleep. And Jeff's like, you really want to spend your last day doing nothing? People come here all over the world just to see these ruins. And these aren't even on the map. Don't you want to get cool photos of our vacation besides just the beach and the pool and the hotel? So while he's still getting dressed and packing, Amy lays down and says, well, you're dressed, so you should just go without me. All he does is climb on top of her, kisses her shoulder, and says, but I don't want to go without you. And she says, okay, let's go. Kind of fucked up. Dude, these are the problems that I have, okay? This relationship is just kind of makes no fucking sense. Yeah, no thank you. Anyway, they get off a bus and they're in like this village of townspeople. And I'll just let you know what they're all wearing, okay? Some of this makes sense, some of this does not. Eric has a flannel shirt. He has the sleeves rolled up. And he's got a t-shirt with like a bullseye on it. And he's wearing khaki shorts and tennis shoes. But they're actually more like skater shoes, okay? Stacy's wearing white pants, a layered white and blue tank top, and flip-flops. Amy is wearing a pink halter top under like this white flowy blouse and khaki pants and flip-flops. And Jeff is wearing a blue button-down shirt, also sleeves rolled up, and blue jeans. I'm sorry, we're about to go look at these Mayan temples, and we're in Mexico, and it's got to be hot. But yes, let's wear flip-flops, and you don't even know where you're going. Like, why would you not come prepared? Okay? Anyway, I mean, I get it, but the fuck? Eric asks Matthias, what now? And he says, well, they take a taxi about 2 miles, and then they need to hike about 11 miles. Or drive 11 miles. Good God, my note. Sorry. Anyway, they got to go like 14 miles out of town. Okay. Well, Amy's taking photos of some of the townspeople, and she's like, no one mentioned a hike. Because again, they're wearing fucking flip-flops. After the bus leaves, they see a truck, like an old truck that says taxi. Well, they walk up towards it, and a dog starts barking and growling from the bed of the truck. Well, the old man wakes up, and Dimitri asks how much to drive them there and shows them the map. And he's like, no good. No one goes there. I'll take you to the big pyramid where everyone else goes. Well, Dimitri's like, hey, what about $20 US? Man says, okay, I'll take you. Because US dollars goes a long way, okay? Well, they are in the thick of the jungle, you guys. Like, think of like the Amazonian rainforest. Trees everywhere. Well, they pull into a dead end, and we see 2 vehicles. Well, these vehicles look old, and one of them is actually Matthias's brother's Jeep. Well, the man that drove them leaves, and Amy's like, well, how do we get back? Jeff pulls out a card from his wallet and says, we call him. She's like, but we don't have signal. Matthias says that he has a world phone, so they're fine. The fuck is a world phone? Like, do you have a satellite phone? But he just has a normal cell phone, so I'm confused. Anyway, well, Eric puts his phone up to his ear, and he's like, can you hear me now? Well, Amy's kind of annoyed with him, and she's like, that's not funny. It's a 20-mile hike. He corrects her and says, it's actually only 11. Okay, but still, you're going hiking 11 miles in a place you don't even know with just a written, drawn-on old map in thick-ass trees, and clearly these vehicles have been here for a minute. What? I have problems. Well, they start hiking, and Eric's telling a story about a girl who got really drunk one night and almost stuck her tongue. Well, at that moment, Amy hits his hat off the back of his head to shut him up. And then she looks annoyed. Well, she asks Matthias how much further. He says they should be there after the stream, but if they get to the Mayan village, they went too far. She's like, what? Mayan village? Anyway, they get to the stream to take a breather, and they see 2 children, a little boy and a little girl, up on some rocks, and they're trying to say hello, but the kids are like, stranger danger. We're not saying shit to them. Matthias is trying to find the path, and he sees these big leaves are stuck in the ground, but they're not rooted, they're just stuck in there. Well, whenever he starts moving them, the little boy runs off, and Stacy and Amy are like, well, where's he going? Amy asks if that's the path, then why was it covered? And Stacy agrees, are we sure? That's kind of weird. And Jeff asks, or Jeff says, well, it's on the map. Matthias is like, yeah, it's on the map. And Jeff's like, well, there, and Jeff and Eric are like, well, maybe the archaeologists hid it because they found something valuable. Do you want to turn around? This is so stupid. Obviously, it makes no sense. Okay. If there are archaeologists, out there, would there not be people going back and forth or, I don't know. It seems kind of sus. right? Fucking white people. They keep moving forward and they come up on this huge Mayan temple covered in this greeny, viney plant. Okay. Like most time, whenever we see Mayan temples, you see like the stones and everything. This, you just see like the stairs and then plants are just covering it. Okay. Well, Amy is taking photos and Matthias notices a yellow tent on the very top of the temple. And all of a sudden, an older man, he's got like a gray beard. He comes riding up on a horse and he jumps off yelling at them. He's speaking Mayan and you can tell he is pissed. Jeff's like, maybe he wants money. And Eric goes, like a toll? Like, the fuck? Anyway, the man continues yelling and pointing at the temple. Well, Jeff pulls out a $10 bill and 2 more men show up. And the horses are kind of like freaked out too. Jeff tells Matthias to show them a picture of his brother, Heinrich. So he pulls his phone out to show the man. And there's a picture of his brother on his phone. Well, they're trying to ask him, like, have you seen him? Well, everything's kind of like slowed down a little bit. Well, quiet down a little bit. Amy continues taking some photos and she's not being very subtle because you can hear the clicking. Well, that pisses off that man and he starts yelling at her. He pulls his gun out as she walks into like the plants that are surrounding the bottom of the temple. Well, Dimitri runs over and like whenever he steps into the greenery, they start yelling even more. So he takes Amy's camera and he's trying to show them what it is because they think they want the footage. You know, like, okay, maybe this is like a private area. They're just freaking out because she took pictures. So Dimitri walks towards them asking if they want the camera. Like, that's all it is. Well, that's when an arrow shoots and hits him in the shoulder. And then the man shoots him in the face. And the camera does not cut away. You see all of this. They all scream and the men are forcing them to climb up the temple and they get to the top and more men are arriving. And these guys aren't like, I mean, obviously it's like from like a village or like a towns, but like they're wearing khaki pants, button down shirts. You know, they're not like wearing like loincloths or anything. Okay. So they get to the top. More men arrived. Matthias is looking in the 2 tents. Like he's like, where the fuck's my brother? Well, because everything is still there, like all the camping stuff. So Jeff tells Eric to get his phone. He says there's not a signal. And Jeff's like, well, what about at the road? Eric's like, I never had one. Amy is pissed. She's like, what the fuck was can you hear me now? Eric's like, it was a joke. Tensions are high. Everyone's freaking out. There's more village people coming in. And it's like, what the fuck, you know? Stacy yells for everyone to just stop. Jeff asks Matthias about his phone. He says the man still has it. Well, there's a hole at the top of the temple with like this pulley hoist type system over it, which is obviously handmade or man-made. And Matthias yells for his brother, but nothing. Well, they notice more like village people coming and they're setting up camp. And Eric's like, maybe it's like some kind of like sacrifice. No idea. You know, it's kind of a weird thing, like a sacrifice of like, hey, just go up to the temple. And so they're thinking someone will come and they're like, maybe the Greeks. Eric says, yeah, but what if they decide not to come? Like, what if they don't follow the map and they decide to leave? Jeff says, then the hotel, we're supposed to check out tomorrow. They'll notice and they'll call the police. I'm sorry. I've listened to enough true crime podcasts to know that most other countries usually don't react. Like, I mean, not saying they don't react, but like, they're not going to be like, oh, well, Jeff and them didn't check out of their hotel, so let's call the police. Like, that's normally not their first reaction, especially if you're on vacation. they're going to think you're just out partying, passed out somewhere first. Anyway, I digress. Well, Stacy goes to take a drink of water, and Jeff says, hey, we should save this. Eric's like, dude, she's thirsty. Jeff tells him, we barely have a day's worth of water. We need to conserve it, which is very true. That is very true. Then all of a sudden, they hear a phone ringing. Well, it's coming from the opening. So they look down and it's pitch black. Matthias says that it's his brother's ringtone. And he knows that because they have the same, sound. And so sorry if you can hear my cats in the background. Anyway, so this is where we start running into problems, okay? More problems. They decide to use the rope pulley system, okay? So this is all so fast, and that's the reason why I'm going through it so quickly, is because they don't take a minute to, chill the fuck out and assess the situation, okay? They're just going. Well, Matthias decides that he's going to go down because he can hear, the phone. Amy finds a lantern and some matches in a tent, and Jeff and Eric are slowly, wheeling Matthias down, okay? So it's like a hand crank on both sides. Well, Amy notices that the rope is starting to break, and a little too late, whenever she calls out to Jeff, they try to pull backwards so the rope, they can bring him back up, but it snaps. All of a sudden, it's quiet, and you see Matthias fall into the blackness, and then you hear Stacy gasp, and you hear the thud. And they're like, oh my God, they're freaking out. Well, then you can hear Matthias gasping. He's still alive. So Jeff tells the girls one of them have to go down because they're not strong enough to work the pulley. Well, the girls look at each other and Stacy's like, I'll go. And Amy goes, you will? And Stacy kind of nods her head and she's like, oh, thank you. And they hug. Bitch. So on Stacy's way down, we see the tunnel, the opening. It is covered in plants. And we see some vines kind of wiggle whenever she moves the lantern, but she doesn't notice this. So Jeff calls out that they're out of rope and she's like, but I'm not at the bottom. So Jeff tells her to jump and she looks down and sees Matthias and he's in bad shape. He is crooked. He's saying, help me. It's a good 6-foot drop and she jumps. Well, she falls and cuts the inside of her knee on some of the broken glass. She pulls out the glass and she wraps it up. I guess she took his Eric's flannel down there because she kind of puts it over it. Well, Matthias says that he's scared. He can't feel his legs. So Stacy yells up and she's like, hey, I think he broke his back. And she goes, it smells. They go, what? And she goes, shit. So I won't ever understand why they bring this up. They even said it at the stream too. They're like, oh, it smells like shit up here. So I don't know if it's this plant smells like shit or if it's dead bodies or no one knows. Okay. So Jeff says they need to build a backboard. Amy's like, what the fuck? I'm not going down there, to help her put them on there. We need to try to tell the people down at the bottom that we need help. Jeff's like, they're not going to help. Amy's like, we have to try. So she runs down to the bottom of the temple and the men on guard, they are yelling at her and they all have weapons drawn and she's trying to tell them. Well, Jeff runs after her and she's like, Jeff, tell him, say it in Spanish. And he's like, they don't speak Spanish. She's like, just try. Well, she is crying and Jeff tries to embrace her and she freaks out. She falls into the pile of the leaves down at the bottom of the temple and they all keep yelling at her. And she's like, why don't you try to fucking help us? And she throws a handful and it hits the little boy. He looks terrified and everyone starts yelling at him, telling him to go up. he must go. And it's so sad because you're like, what the fuck's going on? Like, it was just a pile of leaves. Like, that's all it was. And so Jeff and Amy are like staring, like, what the fuck's going on? Well, they're all still yelling at him and he's crying out. And the boy's mother is like being held back by the other women. And then all of a sudden the men shoot him. Amy cries out in horror and Jeff helps her back up to the top as the men aim their weapons at them. Oh, man. Yeah, you're like, what the fuck is wrong with this place? What is it? So it's getting dark, and while they're building the backboard, Jeff says he touched the vine. Eric says we all have. Well, then they hear the phone again. They ask Stacy if she sees anything. She kind of looks around and she sees movement under the vines, and she's like, I just want to come back up. Well, Amy climbs onto the board and they send her down. She gets a little further down than what Stacy did, maybe like 3 foot difference. Stacy says they can just lift him up. It's only a bit. So they try to figure out which way to grab him. Amy tells Stacy to lift him at his hips because if you lift at his feet, he'll bend at the waist. Well, Stacy says, yeah, but his hips, he'll arch his back. Amy says, okay, so his knees. As soon as the girls pick him up, he bends and you hear the crunching and they're like, just get him on there. And poor Matthias is just like, oh, I couldn't imagine. I would just kill me. Just put me out of my misery. So Jeff takes his shoes off and he notices that Matthias has no reflexes. And he has him squeeze his hand, which he does. Amy says they should move him to the tent. And Jeff's like, we shouldn't move him again. Well, Amy finds some car keys in a bag. And Jeff finds Dimitri's plane ticket. Since he won't... What? I can't read my notes. Oh, since he's not going to be showing, for the plane, his friends would get worried and they'll come. So they just have to wait one more night. It'll be fine. Eric says one person should at least keep watch while everyone else sleeps. And Amy's like, sleep? Really? So there's like a hand crank generator that they use to turn the overhead light above the opening. And Jeff tucks Matthias in. Matthias, whatever. I might just call him Matt at this point. Jeff says they have to keep his legs clean or else he'll die here from infection. Stacy and Amy are in the tent, and while Amy is tending to Stacy's wound on her knee, she's like crying, saying she shouldn't have said they could lift him. Amy's like, it's okay. We'll get him to the hospital tomorrow. Let's just rest. I'm telling you guys, this movie goes quick. Like, I'm not just rushing through this. This is just how quick the film is. So the next morning, Jeff gets up and walks off to pee, and he sees vines moving off the edge. Well, he kind of looks down and he sees a watch. Well, he goes to move some of the leaves, and then all of a sudden he sees like a decayed body, and he stands up, not making a sound. Amy comes up behind him and hugs him. Obviously, he's not going to tell her what the fuck he just saw. But what the fuck? In the tent, Stacy wakes up and removes the covers, and she sees that her leg is wrapped up in the vines. It's crawling inside of her wound. She is freaking out, telling Eric to get it out. Jeff comes in, sees this. Then Matthias is calling out for help. Amy goes over to him. He says something isn't right. And Amy's like, shh, it's okay. It's okay. He says he wants to see his legs. Stacy says she feels it moving inside of her. So Jeff and Eric are like pulling the vine out. Ugh, it's so gross. They pull the vine out of her leg. You see it. And it's, I don't know. I'll have to go back maybe and like just rewatch these clips. But I feel like you can hear like a screeching coming from the vines, maybe. Anyway, Amy removes the covers and his legs are also covered by vines. And it's like eating it down to the bone. Amy calls out for Jeff. He runs over looking horrified. He hurries up. He makes a tourniquet on both Matthias's legs, and they're all like, what the fuck is going on? Same. What the fuck? Well, the phone starts ringing again, and they're like, they have to do something. You know, because like you hear a phone, so you know there has to be one, but also why is there a signal down inside the Mayan temple? They don't have signal anywhere else. What the fuck? Make that make sense. Well, they make torches, and Jeff says he isn't sure how long they'll last, so they have to be quick. Just wait to burn them after both Amy and Stacy are down at the bottom. So Amy goes in first, and you hear the ringing clear as day. Then it stops. Well, when Stacy gets down, they light the torches. They start looking around, and the ringing begins again. Well, they notice an opening, and Stacy says she doesn't want to go in there. Amy's like, but we have to. So they enter a room covered. We'll call it the green room, okay? Because it is covered in these leaves. And there's like these red flowers, okay? So they see a person sitting in the corner. So Amy calls out, and she slowly walks towards them. But whenever she touches it, all of a sudden the head turns and the girl is dead. Like she did. But she's still got flesh on her, but she's dead. So they freak out. Well, Stacy's like, grab the phone, because it's still like in her hand. Well, they take it and it's busted. There's no way it works. Then they hear the ringing again. Amy follows it to the red flowers that are blooming from the leaves. And the inside is mimicking the sound of the phone. Like it has, okay. Okay, you know, like the things that come out of a flower, okay, like a honeysuckle, right? The little like stick looking thingies, stringy thingies. It's those things. And they're like wiggling and vibrating, and the petals are like moving. Oh, it's horrifying. It's kind of freaky, okay? So Amy goes to grab like the base because she's gonna like pull it off, right? But then all of a sudden the vines wrap around her hand, and they're freaking the fuck out. The whole room like comes alive, like it's like a wave of green, and then all of a sudden it like picks up the body. It looks like the body's coming after them. The girls run out of the room. Stacy gets grabbed. Amy goes to help her. They make it back to the rope, and they're like, pull us up. Like they're freaking the fuck out. When they make it to the top, the guys are like, well, did you get the phone? Did you get the phone? Amy's like, there is no phone. And Stacy is crying. Oh my goodness. Could you fucking imagine this whole time that you've been hearing this ringing? It's just a goddamn plant. Like, what the fuck? Oh, that you almost died just to discover that the plants are, I don't know, weird, wild. So Eric's like, what the fuck do you mean the flower was making the ringing noise? Amy's like, I don't know. It was vibrating and creating the sounds. Eric's like, okay, but how? Stacy says it was moving and it was alive. It knows we're here. We have to go. And Stacy, Laura Ramsey, who plays a Stacy, does such a great job because she looks fucking terrified. Like she's not overdoing it. I don't feel like she does such a good job. Well, Jeff says we can't do that. They'll kill us. Amy says, we're not staying here. You didn't see it. Eric says maybe not everyone has to go, just one person. He says he'll go. Jeff says they have guns. There's 50 of them. They killed a child. We just have to wait. Eric's like, okay, wait for who? The Greeks? They couldn't even find their own hotel room. Amy says, we're being quarantined here. We're being kept here to die. Jeff then gets a little frustrated and he goes, 4 Americans don't just disappear on vacation. This doesn't happen. Somebody, the police, our parents, the Greeks, Someone is going to find us. We just have to be alive when they do. Jeff says they have to stick together, keep their wounds covered, look after each other. That is the only way. Four Americans don't just disappear on vacation. Okay, yeah, you're right. They don't. But also, who the fuck did you tell that you were going to go look at this not undiscovered, but this off the beaten path Mayan temple? Nobody. So you fucked up. First off, I would have been like, hey, MySpace, I don't fucking know, Facebook at the time, we're going to go check out this fucking Mayan temple out in the middle of nowhere. I would have told somebody that wasn't in my group. Jeff? God, make it make sense. Anyway. So they sit in a circle outside the tent. They ration their water and a sandwich. Jeff brings some water to Matthias, and he looks rough. Jeff raises the blanket, and he walks over to the group. He says Matthias won't last much longer. They have to cut off his legs. They're like, you're joking. Like, no, we're not doing that. He says they have to before infection spreads, unless it already has. Septicemia. Eric asks, what the fuck is that? Jeff says it's an infection, usually in the bones when exposed to bacteria. Actually, correction, septicemia only happens like when an infection spreads into the bloodstream, not the bones. Jeff going to med school. Anyway, Amy's like, without anesthesia, how the fuck, whatever. Jeff says he has no feeling beneath the waist. She goes, how do we do that? Well, Jeff shows a knife and he says they'll have to break the bones first. Eric's like, what the fuck? This is crazy. We need to take a vote. Jeff raises his hand, and then Stacy slowly raises hers as well. And Eric is like shocked by this. And she goes, he's in med school, Eric. He says, yeah, exactly. Med school. He's not a doctor or a surgeon. She goes, I'm entitled to my vote. Damn right you are, Stacy. Okay, I don't agree with this, but I agree with you on that. Yes, ma'am, you do. Then you hear Matthias go, do it. Cut them off. Whew. All right. This gets gnarly. Jeff gives him a drink. And, well, they found whiskey. Anyway, he gives Matthias a drink of whiskey, and he says he has to break the bones. And then after cutting them, he'll cauterize them, and he won't feel a thing. He tells them to bite down on a belt. And we see that they have a cast iron pan sitting on a fire. And we see like his legs at the shin are just flesh and bone. Like this plant is, I don't know, like carnivorous, eating it. Eric grabs his feet while Jeff takes a large rock and breaks one of the legs. And then he cuts the tendons, and it's so rough. Matthias is screaming, he's yelling, the girls hear all of this, and they're in the tents, you know. So after everything's all said and done, Amy comes out of the tent yelling at Jeff, saying he felt it, didn't he? Jeff says he has nerve damage. He didn't feel anything. Stacy says, but he was screaming and telling you to stop. How could he not feel it if he was telling you to stop? Jeff says it was just the visual. We didn't have a choice. Then they all see the vines and the plants creeping up and taking the cut off pieces and pulling them in. And they all look like, oh my God. Whew. Yeah, no, I would have said, why did they just set this whole place on fire? Anyway, so it's nighttime. Amy and Stacy are sitting in the tent. Eric comes in and Stacy asks for his phone. She flips it open and closes it. She does this repeatedly, hoping for a signal. And he slowly takes it from her. Jeff's at the bottom of the temple and he's watching like the village people. And while he's walking, he notices that they follow him. So he's kind of like just walking in a straight line alongside of the Mayan temple. And these people are like watching him and following him as well. So back in the tent, Stacy's crying that she just wants to go home. So Amy steps out. She sits next to Eric and she asks if Stacy will be okay. He's like, yeah. He's like, I got it out. I saw it all come out. Amy asks if they think anyone will find them. Eric says, honestly, I think making a run for it is our only chance. Amy starts crying, so Eric comforts her. Well, Stacy comes out of the tent and is like, what the fuck? And Eric and Amy are like, what? She says, I heard you fucking her. Eric's like, pardon? They both get up and try to console her, but Stacy is still accusing them. And Amy tells her to calm down. Eric says he would never do that. And Stacy's like, I heard you moaning. Amy's like, I was crying. Well, Jeff comes back up and is like, what's going on? Stacy says, my boyfriend is fucking your girlfriend. Amy says she's just being crazy and irrational. Stacy looks at Amy and says, you think she's never cheated on you? Then Stacy starts yelling at everybody and says that Amy would have slept with Matthias if she didn't stop her. And at that moment, they see during this, the plants and vines have been crawling into Matthias's mouth and throat. So they quickly run over, they try to help him, but it's too late. He's dead. Eric says, well, thank God we cut his legs off. Bro. So, during Stacy's little breakdown, though, while she's lying in the tent, like, there are plants in the tent, like, surrounding it. And obviously, these things are mimicking. So, what the fuck? So, Stacy has another breakdown, and she's like, it's eating me, like it's eating him. Stacy says it's in her side, and she'll show them. She goes to grab the knife, and they try to help her, and she's like freaking out, screaming. They aren't listening to her. And then the flowers start saying, you're not listening to me. So surrounding them, okay, at the very top are still all these little red flowers and the fucking green plants. And they're all saying, you're not listening to me. You're not listening to me. And it's like, oh my fucking God. I would have wanted... Give me some of that whiskey or tequila or whatever it was. Drench them plants and light them bitches on fire. So early in the next morning, we see the men throwing something on the ground. And Jeff and Amy are watching. Jeff says they won't let us leave because they don't want us to spread it. They're salting the soil to keep it contained. So I had to look that up, because I'm just stupid. Anyway, apparently soil impacts plant growth, reduces soil health, and can even lead to soil sterilization, making it difficult or impossible for plants to thrive. So, yep, something's going on with these fucking plants, okay? He says it has to be really old because birds and insects have learned not to land here. Well, Eric comes out of the tent and tells them to come check this out. Stacy is sitting in a tank top and her underwear. Eric tells her to show them. So she raises up the side of her shirt and you can see like these little squiggles under her skin, like she said. They go outside and Amy is holding Stacy while they both apologize to each other. Jeff pours the liquor on her leg and there are more squiggly vine thingies in there. He cuts and she screams and she does a great job. Okay. Like you feel her pain. So after he cuts it and he pulls out like a foot of fucking vine and throws it, he says, do you want me to stop, Stacy? And she's like, no. Well, she turns over and she's like hyperventilating. Okay. Like you would think that they were actually cutting her in real life. So he starts cutting into her side and he pulls out like 2 feet of fucking vine. And like you see The camera angle is like facing Stacy while she's crying and Amy like kind of holding her. And then, you know, Jeff's behind her and you see him like, ugh. Oh. So they sit around and they're sharing a few grapes. And Stacy's kind of like laying in Eric's lap and she's like, I feel more. It's under the muscle by the bone. Well, she goes for the knife and Jeff says, no more cutting. Eric tries to tell her she's okay and she starts crying, saying she's not okay. She can feel it. And you're like, oh my God, this is fucking crazy. Amy gives her the bottle of liquor and she's like, hey, this might help. Well, when Stacy goes to take a drink, they all see her forehead. And you see this vine wiggle right across the top. They all quickly turn away, and she knows that they know. She's like, did you see it? She says she could feel it, and she like grabs her forehead. She's like, I know you saw it. Eric tells her there's nothing there. They didn't see anything. And she's like crying and saying, I know it's there. She's like, I can feel it. Eric looks at Jeff and says, no one is coming. He's going tonight. So they're all taking a little nappy nap in the tent. Stacy wakes up and she looks ragged as fuck. She finds the knife, and behind her, you see the red flowers start kind of moving, and they all start mimicking, saying, I want to cut it. Eric wakes up because he hears Stacy crying. She's standing and turns. She has this huge gash across her forehead, and her other side is cut, and she has started to like fillet a part of her thigh. And Jeff and Amy come out, and Amy gasps. Stacy says, it's okay. I just have to get this one out. She has clearly lost it. Jeff walks up to her and she keeps telling him no. And Jeff's like, just give me the knife. You know, they're all being pretty calm and chill with her. And whenever he touches her, she screams, turns, and slices his arm. She goes back to cutting and she goes, I'm very sorry. And she just keeps digging at her fucking leg this whole time. Well, Eric tries and he tells her calmly, just, hey, give him the knife. And whenever he touches her, she yells, swings, and stabs him straight in the chest. She realizes and she immediately starts crying and apologizing. She's calling out for him. She's like, Eric, no. She says she didn't mean to, and Amy's holding her while she falls to the ground, and the vines start to pull Eric in. Jeff tries to pull them off, but it does no good. Stacy looks at Amy and says it hurts, and she's crying, and she asks Amy to kill her. Amy is saying no, and then she's like, the plants start saying, oh, sorry. Amy is telling her no, and then all of a sudden you hear the plant start saying, kill me, kill me. So Jeff takes the knife from Eric's chest. While the vines are pulling him away, he walks over to Amy and Stacy. And at this point, we see like the Mayan villagers are listening to all of this. And then it's silence, meaning that Jeff kills Stacy. So now it's just those two, Jeff and Amy. And Jeff is like putting his hands in the blood from assuming to be Stacy and Eric. And he's like covering Amy with this blood and tells her, just keep running until you get to the Jeep. If the Jeep doesn't work, keep running until you reach a town. Amy tells him to promise her that he'll still be there. They're going to make a run for it. So Jeff carries Amy down the stairs and she's playing dead. Whenever he makes it to the bottom, he lays her down on the ground and he kisses her. He looks at all the villagers and he says, you don't even know her name. You don't know any of our names. And he's walking away so that they follow him. He says, I'm Jeff Dean McIntyre, Winnetka, Illinois, 22 years old. I was going to be a doctor. That was my dream. And because they think Amy is dead, they're all like facing him and following him. Jeff says, you should know her name too. And they're all like, they start yelling at him as he starts walking towards them. And they start pointing their weapons at him. Like they have guns and bow and arrows. And he screams, her name is Amy. And at that moment, Amy gets up and she starts running. He says, she's not going to die on this fucking hill. That's when they shoot him with arrows. 2 in the chest and 1 in the leg. Jeff falls down and Amy is running through the woods. She doesn't stop. The old man walks up to Jeff as the vines start to creep up and he shoots Jeff. Amy hears this and she knows. The other men are coming after her and they're shooting at her, arrows, guns. She's barefoot, running through a jungle, 11 miles. Don't forget that, okay? So, you know the TikTok trend, run like a girl? That is what Amy is doing. She gets to the Jeep. She's struggling to turn it on. She hears them yelling at her, getting closer. Finally, she gets it going and she hauls ass out of the jungle. All of a sudden, the camera pans in and her eyes are like bloodshot and you think you're going to see something, but you don't. Then we see the other 2 Greeks, the ones that were passed out. Assuming this is like the next day or a couple of days later, we don't know, but they're walking towards the Mayan temple and they're yelling for Dimitri. And the movie ends. Oh, man. So, there are there are some. There is an alternate ending, okay? Because when I watched that the other day, I was like, I thought that ended a little bit differently. So, the alternate ending is Amy escaping in the Jeep, and when the camera zooms in on her face, we see the vines crawling up under her cheek towards her eye, and like she kind of grabs it. And then we're at a funeral and we see the groundskeeper whistling and walking. And then he hears his whistling and he stops at a tombstone with Amy's name on it. And the flower is creeping out from the dirt. Meaning, hey, oh shit, right? But I got questions about that too. Wouldn't they do an autopsy and wouldn't they find that? Like, I don't know. Or if someone is familiar with that, like, do you have to do an autopsy? I would think, did she just make it home normally? Like, just freaking the fuck out and didn't say anything to anybody? And then her parents were like, oh, it's natural causes? Or, I don't know. It just didn't make sense. Okay, so no idea where these plants came from. I read somewhere where the leaves have 6 points, meaning, you know, obviously 666, 6 is like an evil number apparently. But like there's no history at all. We don't know what these plants are or, you know, how long has this been doing this? But, I mean, you're in the jungle, okay? We already know there's a lot of deadly ass shit out there that we're still discovering. And also, like, how do they eat the flesh? Are they just, like, absorbing it? Or, like, I don't know. But it was weird. So, yeah, I went through that pretty quickly, but that's only because the movie goes pretty fast. I will say this. You're not really bored. At least I wasn't really bored because, like, from the get-go, I mean, it's going from the time that you meet everyone. The only scene that could be cut out is, like, where they're drunk on the beach and Amy goes to, like, make out with Matt's ear. Like, that's the only part where it's like, okay, could have done without that. It's not a big deal. Whatever. Like, even it coming back wasn't that big of a deal. But, I mean, I guess with Stacy having a breakdown thinking that they were sleeping together, you know, but still beside the point. So that was The Ruins from 2008. I rented it on Fandango. It was like $3, $3.99, $4. Anyway, but yeah, you guys should give it a watch. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you hated it, liked it, didn't really care. It was okay. Whatever. I feel like it's okay. It's, like I said, not my favorite, but I still enjoy it because it's a fast-paced movie that has some shock value to it. The effects aren't terrible. You know, I'd say probably The Green Room was the only one that was kind of like, really? But yeah, I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for hanging around and sticking with me. Leave any suggestions down in the comments below or shoot me an email at MidwestFrightPodcast@gmail.com. I just forgot it because it's been a minute. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you. Stay spooky. And also, Austin, get your license, my guy. Talk to you later. Bye.